In 1969, a group of astronauts changed the world. They walked on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
In 1972, our journey ended. We've never been back. 2010 begins a year of change. Private companies are working on next-generation spaceships. Governments are looking to go back to the moon and on to Mars. It's time to look up and dream again. It's time to push humans into the cosmos. It's time to educate and engage the planet. It's time for Spacevidcast.
Welcome to Spacevidcast 338 for Friday, December 17th, 2010. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham. With me, as always, is the beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented Carrie Ann Higginbotham, and we are back! Oh my gosh! Can you believe how good? We were gone for like 4.5 years.
Is that where we went?
I may be exaggerating ever so slightly. So we're back. This is the weekly live show. It's a community-driven show. If you're looking for the new shows, those are the Space Pods, also available on our YouTube channel. And we're going to have a pretty awesome discussion tonight about all things space. And the best way to join us is to join live. And by the way, since this is a live show, I think we have a Roku box to give away.
Oh, yeah, I think that's right.
I think we do. So make sure you tweet out the show that it's live, and make sure that you're watching and in the IRC chat room. And one of you, right here, right now, live on the show, will win a Roku HD player. And before the show, we were actually talking about Apple TV and Roku and all the different boxes. And no, you don't want an Apple TV. They're lame. Roku is way cooler. Speaking of, I don't know if you guys know this, so we have a live Roku channel where you can watch live launches, Spacevidcast Live, and by the way, hi, Space Travel's Emporium. We also now have, as of like a week ago, Pete also wrote a Boxy channel. We are now available on a Boxy box.
A Boxy box.
A Boxy box. Now, a Boxy box is more expensive than a Roku box, and I'm not sure that it's really more featureful. So it's cool and all, but I personally prefer Roku. However, if you've got a Boxy box, feel free to install the free Spacevidcast app, and much like on Roku, you can watch live launch coverage, live Spacevidcast coverage, all that fun jazz. So yeah, it's available to you right now. Just go to the Boxy app store and boom, download Spacevidcast. How neat is that?
That's pretty neat.
It's pretty neat.
That's pretty neat.
All right. Let's go ahead and get started with, I'm going to slow down because I'm going to do the Space News Open. So I'm going to slow so the calf can get that ready. Let's go ahead and get started with some space news. Space. And the black. Oh, epic win. So yes, I told him to crank the audio because the next clips that we have really low audio. I forgot about the space news. Oh well, live shows, they're fun. And
Adam, if you could juggle back there while you're directing the show,
he's right here.
That would really help.
He's right there. There you go.
Right.
That's not a green screen, it's a real show.
Okay.
Actually, it's an anniversary today. We've had 2 anniversaries today, Friday the 17th. First one, go ahead. First one is...
well, the Wright brothers.
You wrote them.
Their first flight was December 17th, 1903, which is very, very cool. And obviously, without the Wright brothers making their historic flight, we wouldn't be where we are today. Of course, somebody probably would have done it, but ignore that part.
And even cooler.
And then 100 years later, in 2003, it was the first powered flight of
Spaceship One.
Spaceship One, thank you. I'm like, of something.
I saw you trying to cheat.
Yep. I'm like, can't see that from here. Something.
How neat is that?
What a beaut.
What a beaut.
So I thought that was very cool. And sadly, it's only 2010 and not 2013. Because that would have been a cool 1903, 2003, 2013. But we'll just have to deal with it the way it is.
Someday. So yeah, cool anniversary. But speaking of NewSpace, Virgin Galactic, speaking of White Knight 1, Virgin Galactic is looking to team up with orbital and help deliver actual customers to the International Space Station above suborbital. Now, don't read that to be Virgin Galactic is building a suborbital spaceship. They're not.
Right.
Orbital is looking to build a suborbital craft. They will team up with Virgin, and Virgin will look to help sell seats on the orbital craft. So there's one paying seat. What are you giggling at?
Orbital Virgin.
So yes, but Virgin will help sell seats on the orbital craft.
Yes.
These are the names. I can't help it. This is what it is. In addition, they're going to use White Knight 2 to help for drop tests for the vehicle, as well as if there's a launch abort. Well, they go up and they abort and they pull the vehicle to the side.
Right.
White Knight 2 will then pick it up and then redeliver it back down to the Space Coast or wherever they're launching from,
right.
To help recover the vehicle. So it's more of a teaming up with the existing Virgin Galactic infrastructure. So Virgin Galactic themselves won't be building vehicles to go into LEO, but other companies are looking to do that. And if you saw the space pod on that, it's kind of a neat-looking little vehicle. And everyone's like, it looks like this vehicle from the 80s. It looks like that vehicle. Who cares, right? I mean, if they build it and they make it, and it's like a shuttle type.
You know, the 80s are coming back.
The
so
80s are coming
y'all.
back. Yeah.
It looks fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
Also, I thought I had a.
What?
Well, I was going to say...
Thank you, Uncle. Exactly. Who cares? It flies.
Exactly. It flies, right? I mean,
Yes.
And that's the cool thing about actually, this is a good lead-in. So the cool thing about all this is now we're starting to see some competition. We've got Orbital Sciences, SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, Masten Space Systems, Armadillo Aerospace. I'm forgetting a couple.
I'm sure.
But you know, we've got all these companies that are starting to compete and build these next-generation vehicles that will start to drive the cost of spaceflight down. However, very recently, it was published that the cost of sending NASA probes up into space has actually increased and not decreased.
Right.
A lot of people are saying, well, you know, the goal of moving to commercial space was to lower the cost, and look, that's not happening, everything's increasing.
Right.
But I think we're forgetting that we haven't actually launched payload on commercial spaceflight yet. We're not actually flying these commercial space flights yet. So the cost increase is not because of COTS.
You mean the cheese wheel didn't?
The cheese wheel? No, it's not. It's not.
That wasn't
in fact,
okay.
we haven't seen the cost benefit of commercial spaceflight yet. They're just getting started. They're not putting payloads into space just yet.
Right.
So you need to give it a little bit more time before you go, oh, this isn't working. It actually will work. It's just we need to actually start flying these missions. And obviously, companies such as Virgin and SpaceX and all, they need some. This is rocket science. It's not like building a cell phone. It takes some time to make all of this go.
Plus, you know, these people are creating jobs.
Oh yeah,
you have
absolutely.
to give them some credit for that. You know, everyone's looking for jobs anymore, and they're creating them out of thin air.
You want to explain the cheese reference? Because I don't think we've ever actually mentioned that on any of the Space Pods or live shows before.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I mean, it's a good. Just explain what the cheese reference is.
So SpaceX, as
it's a bit runny.
SpaceX has a sense of
The cat
humor.
ate it. Sorry.
Oddly enough, and I shouldn't say oddly enough. Of course, they have a sense of humor. They're a very small, nimble company, and of course, you know. So they decided on their last launch, which was just a couple of weeks ago.
Falcon 9 Flight 2, COTS 1 demonstration with the Dragon,
Yes.
which was awesome.
They had a super secret payload.
And they wouldn't tell us what the payload was.
No.
They did the press briefing afterwards, and I think it was Robert Perlman from Collect Space who actually asked. He was like, "What was the secret payload?" And Elon was like, "I'm not going to tell you."
Well, that was the thing.
You have to wait till tomorrow. I'll tell you tomorrow.
Well, and the best part was that at first, when you know, a lot of these companies, when they say secret, you at least I automatically think military. You know, something that's top secret, not just like. Psst,
oh yeah, actually,
don't tell them.
Mars Oz on the chat room even said it was a spy satellite for China.
Right, exactly. So you know, no, goodness no. So thank you for Robert Perlman for asking the question directly, because you could immediately tell from his reaction that he kind of was like, I'm not going to tell you. And it wasn't like, oh, no, we can't talk about that. Please actually strike that. Take him out of the... You know, it wasn't like this top secret scary thing, but there was something kind of weird about the whole thing. And so then finally there was a picture, which I'm sorry we don't have, but there was this cheese wheel. And they're saying, call it top secret, more like the Val Kilmer movie. So there's a picture, if you've ever seen a really bad 80s movie, there was the logo from the movie that said top secret, and there was a picture of a cow. I mean, it was just like this totally ridiculous, funny thing, which I found funny anyway.
So anyhow, they flew cheese, and that was
random
off the
thing.
Monty Python. There was a Monty Python cheese sketch, which is what it was flown after, and you can YouTube that. It's a pretty funny sketch from Monty Python, which is, it's a bit runny.
Yeah, so like I said, they have a sense of humor, and they wanted to put something up there, and they wanted to call it secret, and they did, and it was, it's good to see somebody still laughing, right?
And and we haven't had a live show since Falcon 9 Flight 2, but again,
Right.
congratulations to SpaceX, the first company, not government, but company, to put a
Amazing.
craft into space, orbit the Earth, and then safely recover it. And actually, there were some comments on YouTube saying, well, Virgin's done this before. And actually, that's not true. First, Virgin has flown no craft into space. Composites did fly White Knight 1 and Spaceship 1 into suborbital space,
Right.
but has not orbited the Earth.
Right.
So that's the big difference. This was
That's
a
a
craft
huge
capable
difference.
of low Earth orbit, capable of going to the International Space Station, which White Knight 1, Spaceship 1, White Knight 2, and Spaceship 2, which is still built by Skeletal Composites but will be run by Virgin Galactic, they are all incapable of doing. So this is the first time a company's ever done that. And keep in mind, the heat shield on Dragon is also capable of a lunar re-entry. So when you go to the moon, you have a faster re-entry into Earth, so you need a bigger heat shield. It could do lunar or Martian re-entry into Earth. Now, they haven't said that they're going to the moon or Mars outright. They haven't said that, but it's interesting
Right.
that it's capable of doing that right now today, is it not?
Yeah,
At least re-entering.
There shouldn't be a...
Now, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on Dragon.
Yeah.
They've got to get the photovoltaics done and a bunch of other fun things, but great successful mission. And, that's 2 successful Falcon flights in a row. There are all these people, private space has to prove themselves and blah, 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 blah. Well, I think they're doing that.
They're in the process of doing that. And in the very beginning, NASA had to prove themselves as well.
Yeah, as the NASA man mentions, they still do have to rendezvous with the ISS. They did control the vehicle in
Right.
space. They met all of their COTS requirement for COTS test 1. Then we'll have 2 more COTS tests, possibly only 1 more COTS test. They're looking to possibly combine COTS 2 and COTS 3,
Which would be interesting.
which would be into 1 mission and then dock with the International Space Station. Now, keep in mind, at this point, Dragon would be for cargo only, while SpaceX is capable and has a design for a human-rated capsule. At this time, Dragon is not human-rated, so it will be cargo only.
Right.
But, someday.
So while we're talking about human spaceflight, I found this interesting little bit, and I'd like to just chat about it for a second if we have it.
That's why we have a chat show.
That's, there you go. There's a senator in Texas.
Dragon's cheese-rated. Sorry. That's funny. That's funny,
That is
Trebles.
funny.
Yeah.
No, I like that. There's a senator in Texas who is pushing through this bill that he has called the Spaceflight Liability Bill. And it's designed to protect private spaceflight companies from being sued if passengers on board are injured or killed.
Which makes sense. Spaceflight is one of the hardest things humans have done.
Right. It's, yes.
And, last night, maybe 2 nights ago, chat room helped me out, we were actually having a talk about the failure rate in human crafts and what percentage of humans were lost in different, for different countries and whatnot. It was pretty staggeringly high. It's like 5%. Imagine that for a moment. If that happened with airlines, 5% of everyone who flew on an airline died. That's a staggeringly high number,
disturbing.
right? That's very difficult. So that makes a lot of sense because there will be problems. It's a controlled explosion, people.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I found it fascinating. He very much so wanted to push it through now instead of the next what is it called? The next legislature time period, which would be 2 years from now, because he thinks that would be too late. And I found that really fascinating that this guy, he's right outside of right by Blue Origin, and Armadillo Aerospace is down there.
That was the one I was forgetting, Blue Origin.
Yeah, all of those guys are down there. So he's kind of a little bit more submerged in it than, probably a senator from, I don't know, Iowa, per se. But I think that was really interesting that he's trying to get this through as fast as possible, because it's going to take some while to kind of get it all the way, until it is law.
I'd like to read the whole bill, but overall I think it's actually a good idea because we don't want to hold back this industry. And actually, as Ron Smith mentioned in the chat room, the airline industry is much more mature, and lately, for whatever reason, I've been equating space, comparing space against airline, and that's a very fair statement. The space industry is not nearly as mature as the airline industry, mostly because we have space programs, not a space industry, and we have an airline industry. So the airline industry has had a lot more time, and we're just now building a space industry. So you could say, well, we've been in space for 50 years, but we've had space programs for 50 years, not a space industry for 50 years.
Right.
So that will be a huge shift in mentality when we move to a space industry, and one thing that's going to change is liability for stuff like this. But even so, spaceflight is still much more difficult than airline travel. And it is still, airline travel is much easier to do than the giant controlled explosion of getting you to Leo. So there's still going to be that danger, and we'll get better at it, certainly, but it is still going to be very complex for the foreseeable future. I'm going to just throw it for the next 10 to 20 years. It is what it is. Unless there's a radical shift in propulsion technology, which I'm a huge advocate of, but you can't just will it. So if I could, it would have already been willed.
There you go, there you go. And if I may, just really quickly, on the lighter side of it, there happened to be a comment at the end of this article that I found fascinating. And I won't give out a name or anything because it doesn't really matter, but he or she says, "Mark my words, unsaved. Any fool who allows himself to believe he's going to be shot into in a space rocket for a tour of Buck Rogers' home planet is in for a rude awakening. They're going to take your money and deliver condolences to the family with a blue ribbon for space bravery. Man will never fly in outer space. That is absurd and an insult to the intelligence of anyone with a lick of sense." Just saying.
Doesn't Space Adventure... Haven't we already done this with Space Adventures?
I think there's got to be...
Haven't we... Richard Garriott?
600 or so astronauts in the world that can... Yeah, I don't know where this person came from. I just found it hysterical. So I just thought I'd share. Go on. Next.
This is why we have Spacevidcast. So we can fight this stuff, right? Once again, allow me to suggest joining the community show so you can be part of the chat room and talk about this stuff, which is going 24/7, so you can pop in at any time.
There you go.
And
there
talk.
you go. Oh, goodness. Okay, sorry.
So yeah, that'll be interesting something.
We should shoot that guy in one of the first ones.
Slightly lighter note, the Nexus S was released today, and oh my gosh, here's a Nexus S. Hang on, let me turn it on so you can see it. And is anyone surprised that I have a Nexus S the day it came out? No. All right, so there you go. Hang on, I want to show you the really cool effect it does when you turn it off. It goes. Let's see if you can see it. It goes like this.
Like an old tube TV used to.
And
do you kids remember those things?
Here's why I'm bringing up the Nexus S. Here's how it's relevant to space. Google sent these phones, 6 or 7 of them, 7 of them, into space. Here's a quick clip. Watch this from New Scientist.
Here in California, a team is preparing to launch homemade spacecraft, but it's not your typical mission. They want to see how Google's new Nexus S phone holds up at altitudes greater than 30,000 meters. The phone has a number of sensors, like an accelerometer, a gyroscope, and of course, a camera.
So we hope to get some really cool pictures. We hope also to get a chance to run some of the sensors against some pretty harsh conditions. We hope to get some idea of what types of forces the balloon is subject to.
The setup is surprisingly simple. They've taken a styrofoam beer cooler, cut out one side, and attached the phone along with radio transmitters and extra cameras.
It's actually a really easy project to do. You can do it for fairly cheaply if you can find a phone to do it with. Really less than $500, especially if you have the phone doing the transmission of the current location. Prior to having phones to send up, you'd have to construct the microcontroller yourself, add batteries, add all the sensors yourself, and that would be a lot more trouble.
Once aloft, the balloons will soar upwards at between 3 and 7 meters per second. They'll pop when they reach an altitude of about 30,000 meters and send the payloads back to Earth.
We have 1 more minute until we get.
It can take up to 30 minutes before they hit the ground, and horizontal winds will blow them off course.
The last launch we did was about 150 miles. We're hoping these will stay within 200 miles, hopefully even less.
7 balloons were launched, and 6 have since been recovered. Now engineers are sifting through pictures from near space and a ton of sensor data. For the moment, it's all fun and games, but Google is hoping to incorporate technology from its latest phone into the next generation of cheap commodity satellites.
All right. So as BZ mentioned in the chat room and just freaked out with, technically it's not space. The boundary of space is 100 kilometers, so it was about a third of the way there. It was near space. But let me point out, when you saw that last shot, before they went back to the graphic there, that was the curvature of the Earth you were seeing. So it's high enough up where you can actually see the Earth curving. All right, that's pretty high up. So we'll call it near space, technically not space, but high enough where it's freaking cool. So lay off, people.
Yeah.
But here's where, so first off, that was really neat. And that's why I brought up the Nexus S. But I had an idea.
Was it neat?
You know, that sure is neat.
That's pretty neat. Sorry.
How neat is that? Near space, yes, near space. How cool would this be? Here's a thought I had, which is, if you want to do microsatellites and stuff like what they were doing, you have to piece it all together yourself. You got to source the balloons and all the pieces. And you know, anyone can do this. You can get a school and you can make it happen. It's about $500.
They were using styrofoam beer coolers, for crying out loud.
Obviously, if you wanted to do this, you could. But wouldn't it be cool if someone did two different things? First, someone put a kit together for you. So you could just buy the near space kit, right? That has the balloon and the little styrofoam thing that you put your phone into and everything else that lets you launch and put stuff into near space. I'm just going to say space from now on because saying near space is stupid. You know what I mean? It is what it is. All right. So it is. You can see the curvature of the Earth. It's enough to make people go, wow, that's space, that's cool. All right. But then the second part would be, someone should build some software for iPhones, Android, whatever, that does all of the stuff on the device that you need it to do. So it uses all the sensors and it records all the data for you. It records the GPS data and transmits the GPS data back to a computer for you so you can track it when it's in range of, cellular towers, and keeps the camera recording, and then records, possibly even maybe burns the data into the camera recording for you. So you've got all this software on the camera. So you buy the kit, you install the software, drop it in there. Hope you don't lose your phone, because you could lose it. They recovered 6 of 7, right? And then you've got everything you need to launch this thing into space. So that's my challenge to Spacevidcasters. Someone come up with a kit that you can buy, and then someone else come up with some awesome near space software that you can install on either Android or iPhone or whatever, so you can start doing this stuff. Wouldn't that make your life? I mean, wouldn't that be one of those things where now people start getting interested because they can do it themselves?
Right.
Right. I mean, I would do that. I'd be like, piecing it together. I'll probably do anyhow, just because it makes for some good video, and I think it'd be kind of fun to have everyone kind of send in stickers or whatever, and we'll put it in there and we'll put stuff up, as high as we can get it.
Right.
Actually, you cannot send a balloon in. Someone answer this. You can't send a balloon into the technical boundary of space, 100 kilometers. It would burst way before then, right? You would need some propulsion unit to get it up that high.
BZ says no.
Raccoon. Right, so, all right, let's take this to the next level, Spacevidcasters. Do the near space balloon, and then do the actual space system that has propulsion that can, it goes up as high as it can, and then it pushes it the rest of the way, if we could, for a reasonable price. How awesome would that be? That's my challenge to the rocket scientists in the room that were whining that it's not actually space and it's near space. Figure out how to do it so it's actually in space, and then let's record it and make it happen here on Spacevidcast. All right, so my phone was ringing, so at least I remembered to put it on silent. All right, so that's all that.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay.
We did the launch costs.
Yes.
What's left?
What do you mean left?
Oh, Kennedy Space Center.
Yes.
Your turn.
Oh, hold on, I have to grab it though, because...
Well then, if we're gonna have to grab it, then later on today, NASA's gonna be doing tanking tests for Space Shuttle Discovery. That's gonna be where they're actually gonna be doing some pretty serious tests this time around. They're actually gonna be simulating launch conditions as best they can, including scheduled holds in the timeline, whole 9. They're gonna be fully tanking up the liquid hydrogen and oxygen to see if there are any additional leaks, and just get ready to launch this vehicle finally. We will be covering that live right here on Spacevidcast, so certainly tune in and chat live and watch the tanking tests as they occur in high definition, which is pretty cool. How neat is that? And then...
It's pretty neat. You know what?
You know what? For those,
that's a beaut.
That's a beaut. For those who don't understand the reference, we will post a link in the chat room in post-show, so you have to watch live in order to see that.
Oh, good gracious. Okay.
So they'll be doing tanking tests. Once the tanking tests are complete, they're going to detank the whole thing. They're going to get rid of all the fuel, and then they're going to roll it back to the vehicle assembly building, do X-rays on the external tank, the big orange things. There's one, and make sure that there are no additional cracks or problems with the external tank. hopes that if everything checks out, they'll roll it back in January for launch in early February.
Right.
That's what we're hoping will happen. So launching, tanking tests begin tomorrow, live coverage right here in Spacevidcast. It's going to be awesome. So make sure to watch that. And speaking of NASA, Kennedy Space Center.
Thank you. Now that was a segue I can work with. So Kennedy Space Center, design work has begun on a new master plan to transform KSC into a little mini space Disney. That's more Transformers.
Transformers.
And I don't think Disney has the rights to that.
Okay.
Not that it matters. So with the hopes that they get one of the retired shuttles, they want to put it on display and not just kind of upright and boring, but actually in an enclosed area where you can go and look at it inside, and they want to have it suspended from the air looking like it's in orbit. So they want to have like a huge...
That would be awesome!
Yeah, didn't you see the picture?
No.
Oh, here.
I didn't know there was a picture.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have that on the switcher, but hang on, I'm going to do one of these. This is why we're a web show.
You can't turn it though. I mean,
I know, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, one of these. Oh, it's out of focus.
It's totally out of focus.
All right, well, pretend like that's in focus.
Okay, well, it
hang on,
pretty much looks like a space shuttle in orbit, guys.
There.
And
it's right where I would normally be. All right.
Yeah. Anyway, it's like a $100 million revamping project, and they've already got the designs going on, and it should be really, really cool. It's the initial design concepts call for a 64,000 square foot home for the orbiter, and people can go up and sort of, they say up close, but they don't mean like this close.
They mean
as close as maybe the camera is to me right about now. But still, it would it would look really cool. And it's if you've ever been to Kennedy Space Center, the Visitor Center.
Yeah, it's $1,000 to go through the Visitor Center now.
Yeah, kind of. But while it's interesting, maybe the first time you go through, or possibly the second time you go through, the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh time you go through, not so much. Especially when you're over the age of like 12. There's a lot of parts of it that are just old.
Yeah, but it's a live rocket production.
Yeah, but when you're at the Visitor Center proper, it could use a little love.
It could.
There's one section, actually, the last section that Tim brought us through, the last time that we were there. Tim. That was very, very cool and interactive and a little bit retro with some of the posters and stuff like that. And that was a lot more fun, but the rest of it is kind of, it could use some help. So this will be really nice, and it'll be an interesting way to have the orbiter on display. Again, not just boring and just kind of sitting there, sort of like the rocket garden, but actually in an area where you can go. They'll have 2 different levels, it looks like, in the design, so you can kind of see it from underneath, or you can go above and sort of see it with the payload doors, or with the bay doors open, and the arm extended, and all of that other fun stuff. So I thought that would be very, very cool, and I'm very excited about that. And they definitely deserve to have one of the shuttles, considering all of them have been there at some point in time. You'd think that maybe they could lay claim to one.
That'd be cool. I'd love to see that.
There.
It'd be a little bit ironic if they lost the space shuttle to somewhere else for the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. But
Really sad is, yeah.
All right. On that note, that's our show. We're gonna is Pork Chop in the live chat room?
I thought so.
Pork Chop, say hi if you're in the live chat room. And I do want to remind you guys, we have a live show every week. We'll be back next week for Spacevidcast. It's every Friday at 2 a.m. Coordinated Universal Time.
Next week will be our Christmas Eve show.
Oh, yes, it will. It'll be
Thursday in the States.
It'll be Thursday night for those of you in the States. That's 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's going to be very festive-ish? Festive-ish. It'll be fun.
We didn't get our Santa hats this year at Target.
And in the meantime, we've got space pods that we do throughout the week, so make sure to tune into those for all your space news, the non-whatever. But this is it's a conversational show. This is where the space geeks get together and we talk and we have fun, and it's awesome. I think that's the only awesome in the show.
The only awesome in the show?
Well, yeah, we need to make sure we hit at least 7 awesomes for this particular show before we're out.
Oh, we have a lot of neats.
We do have a lot of neats, but there's an awesome meter that we're doing. They've been tracking the word awesome in the actual like transcriptions, how many times we say awesome.
I understand. All right, so we definitely need to up our awesome.
Yeah, we need to have like more awesome in the show.
Okay, so how many awesomes do you think we've gotten so far?
I don't know, but we're close enough where I'm gonna take it out. Did Pork Chop say hi?
Yes, he did.
Pork Chop, congratulations, you won the Roku.
That's why we were looking for you.
Want to make sure you had to tweet and be in the chat room, and that happened. So, bam, Pork Chop, winner of the Roku. Tune in next week live for your chance to win a Roku HD player, where you can stuff on your HD TV and awesome stuff like that. Kath, were you trying to say something to us before we?
We do?
Oh my gosh! Before we get out, I skipped an entire news item.
I was relying on you and your computer that I can't see for that.
TMA 20, Expedition 2627 launched the International Space Station.
Loud.
Here's the launch coverage.
Oh.
10 seconds. 5 seconds. Engines at maximum thrust and liftoff of the Soyuz TMA-20 as Katie Coleman, Paulo Nespoli, and Dmitry Kondratyev head toward the International Space Station.
All the parameters of the control systems are within the norm. Okay, we copy.
The Soyuz lighting up the night sky there at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. It's a good pitch program according to flight controllers.
Functioning, thrusters are stable.
The Soyuz is delivering 102 tons of thrust from its 4 boosters and single engine. The first stage of the Soyuz measures 68 feet in length and 24 feet in diameter. It is burning liquid fuel for the first 2 minutes and 6 seconds of the flight.
Is nominal on board. Pressure is normal. 60 seconds. Yaw, pitch and roll are within the norm.
1 minute and 10 seconds into the flight, the velocity is at 1,100 miles per hour.
It's time to lift off. It's time to lift off.
Spacevidcast, intro, take on, slow down. In 1969, astronauts changed. In 1970, our journey ended. We've never been.